Hi, my name is Xavier Sanchez. Everyone calls me X. I'm a managing director at CFGI's IT risk advisory practice. I focus on compliance, internal audit, SOX, and all the alike. A lot of times I focus more on the IT side of the house, but I'm a generalist from that standpoint. CFGI across the board, we provide services from an accounting advisory standpoint, business transformation, risk advisory, evaluation, and tax. We really pride ourselves on being agnostic in the tools and try to find which tools work best for clients. Not every tool is going to be a best fit for everyone, and it's a lot of preferences and what the organization, the size, and industry makes sense. I heard about the FloQast compliance tool about a couple years ago now, maybe a little bit more, and from my service offering, a lot of times we were recommending the closed tool for if a client we're seeing from a SOX perspective, we're having control issues from getting from a closed checklist or formalizing the closed process, we would actually recommend the closed tool. So when we heard about the compliance tool, we were excited to see it, knowing that FloQast really prides itself in that workflow and that connectivity. So that's where I was definitely excited to see what FloQast was producing from a compliance standpoint. The close is such a big part of SOX, where there's so many key controls occurring during the close, that it just makes sense to have those two things combined, and taking credit as you're completing the close and how FloQast is tracking that with the sign-offs and the execution, and having that feed directly into a compliance module, be it for management's execution and showing that these controls are in fact being executed against, and then even from the controls being evaluated either by internal audit or management or external parties like ourselves, and being able to really streamline even the request process, where we don't have to go and request 2 separate months of reconciliation support. It all lives within the tool, and it's open to be audited. Just logistically, if you're going through the close and everything that goes into the month-end close, and then you got to take an additional step where you got to take that same documentation, ensure that you have all the appropriate approvals and review documentation, and then bring it over to a compliance module if it's being requested, or provided separately from an audit request. By having the close module and everything live within the close module, and optimizing, kind of knowing where you're going to have everything connected, having everything update live, and getting credit for the approval controls and the execution controls, and then not having to take that additional step is where you're going to save a ton of time. Whereas before, you would get through all that month-end close, and it's like, okay, now I got to take another several hours, half a day to collate and then get this stuff over to either a compliance module or to an auditor. You have those synergies of everything living in one place, everything's consistent, and you don't have a disconnect. You also don't have a disconnect between literally what the control language is that's living on the most updated RCM versus what a control owner should be doing, and they're not aware of updates that were made to the control language or exactly what needs to be done. That's all living and being updated live and all together, and as they're executing it, they know that they have comfort out that they have the most recent control language, and that's what they're executing towards. It's never too early to start standardizing processes, and there's different reasons for it, and even just good business practices, or even thinking about you're trying to implement an internal controls framework. That's where it all starts, is with the documentation and the formalization, and a tool like the compliance tool will help companies get there. I think by formalizing your processes and procedures, you eliminate the risk of tribal knowledge, a single point of failure if somebody decides to move on, or God forbid, for some reason they can't execute on their job. You have the documentation in place to start from, as opposed to not having anything documented, or you're just looking at last month's documentation, last year's documentation, with no standard documentation on top of it, cover sheets, things like that. There's an appetite to push things off because it's they feel like compliance, you only do it when you have to. But there's value in identifying risks and understanding which controls, be it formal, informal controls you have there, and the tool and the compliance tool will help organizations do that, or pre-IPO or PE backed of having that all in one place. And it's just good hygiene for an organization to have that documented and using a tool, a compliance tool.